This is Cell Block 776. This video is part of an ongoing series I'm doing, highlighting ham radio activities, special events, monthly meetings, things like that. This video is from the meeting of the Baton Rouge Amateur Radio Club, held Tuesday, July 28th, 2015, at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They start the meeting with a quick Pledge of Allegiance, go into a program on the reverse beacon network system, followed by another program about use of reverse repeater, going into the listening to the reverse side of the repeater to listen to the input of the other person, see about using SIMPLEX. And then Jim N5IB does a quick little show and tell of a project he's working on. This runs about an hour total for everything in there. And I'll try to put some descriptions down in the links below for more information where you can skip forward. And this is for people who are interested in ham radio, those who are interested in seeing what other clubs do, and maybe considering joining a club. And this is some of the activities that are going on locally to me. There are other videos I've done. You can look back through my video list for the Ascension Amateur Radio Club meeting and some even field day events. So look for those also. And thanks for watching. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much, and enjoy the video.
Let's open our meeting, as is our custom, with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. And also, as is our custom, we'll start with our introductions. How about this first table? Jim, start it off, please.
I'm Jim, N5IB.
I'm Wayne, N5YFC.
Ken, W5KQ.
Dick, N5KIP. Marvin?
I'm Marvin, N5HE.
I'm Don, November 5, Kilo X-Ray Foxtrot.
Ruby and 5 RSW.
Thornton, Cofield, KG5HRC.
Jared, H5, HJO.
Norm, AC5NR.
Vernon, AA50.
Dana, 85EC.
Wayne, KG5HLF. KD5RET.
Michael, KD5MLD. David, KF5AEQ.
He's a visitor.
All right. Glad you're here.
David, K5DFD.
One in the back.
Tom, KE5LBQ.
And K5HDE.
Larry, KG5DXP. About a table over here. Go ahead, Mark. New Tech.
New Tech, Mark. Grading this sheet as we speak.
And I'm Jerry, and I'm a new tech.
All right, Jerry.
And new tech as well.
Everybody, M5VUD.
Hold up, buddy. You missed the guy right behind you. Say it again, please, sir.
I'm sorry.
For me, go ahead.
I already did.
Everett Landry, Tech, New Tech.
Excellent. Welcome to the hobby.
Paul, WA4FXT.
Todd, KB5TMD.
George, W5GG.
Abby, New Tech.
John, WA9JBR.
All right.
Steve, KC5SAS.
And
Somebody walk in the back. Go ahead.
Ty, KA1TY. Sorry, I'm too down.
All right.
By the way, we got a new extra over here too.
New extra.
All right, well, we'll get our meeting started. Before we start, I see our equipment manager here. Dave, do you have anything you'd like to say about the club equipment?
All the equipment except for the antenna analyzer is available.
Okay. Very good.
I happen to have I'm the gentleman who has the analyzer. I'm waiting on some stuff, so if anybody needs it,
Okay.
get in touch with me and I will bring it to you.
All right, that's what we need to know.
I have one of the it's under repair right now. Okay. All right. Buddy, would you like to say something about the class that's ongoing, please?
Classes are ongoing. We've got, how many, John? About 18 students?
16, I think.
16, 18, something like that. We've had 2 sessions so far, so it's not too late to start, although you'd be pushing it if you go wait much longer. But they're going well.
Very good. Thank you. All right, well, we'll get into our program. We have 2 presentations tonight. One's on the reverse beacon network that Dick, N5 KIP, is going to present, and the other's on reverse repeater operation, which I'll present. Dick, are you ready to go? You want to start off? Okay, go ahead.
I'm sure there are those here who have used the reverse beacon network more than I have, so help me out as I go along. If you can give me a hand, it would be fine. The reverse beacon network actually started about 2008, so it's fairly recent development. And I find it very helpful to do a lot more than what I'm showing here, if you get into it. Let's see what happened to my... How's that? Screens too. Yeah, we just may have to get by with it.
Will the screen go up anymore?
Alrighty. It started about 2008. It's a real-time spotting network. It operates in real time. There are archives, so you can go back and look at your call or other calls and see what activity has been spotted over time. There's, I think today I looked at it, there's 114 skimmers working today. It varies. Sometimes you guys will come on, older ones will go up. But any given time, there's over 100 operating, typically.
So what's a skimmer?
The skimmer is a software-defined radio receiver. It's pretty broad-banded, and it covers one or more of the hand bands. Some skimmers will cover a single band. Many of them cover multiple bands, and they tend to cover the first 90 megahertz of the band. So, for example, in this 40-meter band, the skimmers are likely to pick up all CW signals, but not probably in the dual novice portion, say up around 7114, for example, popular straight key frequency, probably not going to get picked up by most of the skimmers. But they're software-defined radios, so they have a they're broadbanded, and they are looking for signals. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what they're looking for. So it's all automatic, and it's reported to a network. So you are seeing computers picking up your signal and reporting that to a network. Does that make any sense? There's over 100 of them worldwide. They measure the frequency that they're picking up the signal on. They measure the signal-to-noise ratio at the receiver location. They measure the CW speed. So virtually any CW, RTTY, or PSK signal, it becomes a beacon, in a sense. And that's what these skimmers are looking for. They're looking for digital signals, CW, RTTY, and PSK. There's an aggregator program with the computer at the skimmer site, with the individual hand radio operator site that's operating the skimmer. It uses an aggregator which reports it to the network. So his data is going real time to the network. Now, the software-defined receivers are necessary to be a skimmer. To operate a skimmer, you've got to have a software-defined radio. However, you don't have to have a software-defined radio to use reverse speaking. So the software-defined radio part of it is in the skimmers, but the end user is not having to use a software-defined radio. So there's an antenna, here's the software-defined radio, here's the computer at the shack of the skimmer, and he's using the aggregator program, and he's reporting to the reverse beacon network through a internet connection. So the pros to using the reverse beacon network as opposed to a conventional spotting network would be that there's going to be a lot more spots. You're getting all this automatic data, so you're going to get multiple spots.
You said they had 100 beacons out there.
114 is
114. Is that just America, or is that worldwide?
Worldwide. But they tend to be concentrated, as you expect, in the U.S. and Europe.
Yeah.
There tend to be fewer in other areas of the world. As I mentioned, they report the signal-to-noise ratio. You can have the potential to analyze the machine. Go back in the archives, you can analyze these signals. So these are advantages. You don't get signal-to-noise ratios or port speeds with conventional reporting, which you do with this. And these can be used by retail servers. In other words, people have set up various spotting programs on the internet that use reverse beacon. And they have very sophisticated filters built in. So you can look for DX stations in Europe, and you can look, you can put in on certain bands. You can say, I want to hear European stations on this band. You can build in filters to the so-called retail servers. Now, we're not going to talk about these today. If you think about it, the reverse beacon network can be kind of thought of as a wholesale distributor of information in the retail service. But we're going to talk about the reverse beacon network itself. But CC Cluster and others use that.
On some of those, I think DS Watch will know it. You can actually put in somebody's call sign, and it'll show you
That's right.
when they've been on.
You also can do that with reverse beacon. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Now, the cons are spot just about everything. So when you go to one of the conventional sites, you get more or less rare stations, desirable stations. This thing's going to pick up all kinds of calls. You may get duplicates because you've got stations all over the place. And there are features built into the program to eliminate the duplicates, but they don't work 100%. You may have an image, it may be a maladjusted receiver, so you might see a station showing up on two different frequencies, when in fact it's really just on one frequency. So that's another potential disadvantage. And these skimmers are very highly accurate. They're over 99% accurate in actually reading calls. But there's so many of them that you're going to get busted calls. So you might have, let's say, the 114 skimmers out there, 113 of them hear N5 KIP, but one of them kind of screws up and it hears N5 KIR. So you're going to get two spots. It's accurate, it's 99% accurate, but the one that's inaccurate is going to report the wrong call. If that makes any sense. So you are going to get busted calls. So those are some of the cons. But it's got a lot of power. You can determine what stations are currently on the air, who's hearing them, and what the signal-to-noise ratio is. That's particularly helpful, give you some idea how strong it is. You can indicate which bands are open. I'll show you, it's had maps that show where the contacts are being made. You can see propagation patterns. You can search, as we talked about a second ago, as Don mentioned, for specific call signs, including your own call sign, which is very useful. You can perform A/B antenna comparisons. You can transmit on your, in my case, a vertical antenna, and I transmit on an off-center fed dipole wire antenna, and I can compare the signal strengths reported at the signal-to-noise ratio reported at the skimmers from the two different antennas. You can do spot analysis. You can compare 10 stations to see how they're doing. So you're in a contest, and you pick out your 10 competitors and see how they're doing. Who's hearing them? Are they doing better than you are? And so forth. You can do analysis. You can compare your station to another local station.
If you are detected by 2 or 3 or more of these stations, does it report them all, or?
Yeah, it's going to. Same station hears you again 2 minutes later, it's not supposed to report.
You know, I mean,
But-
multiple stations.
Yes, because
multiple-
you want to see what areas of the world you open up. So, yeah, you're going to be reported, but I think I can show you an example where maybe 10 stations report. So you're going to get reported by multiple stations. Now, the same station is not going to report you for a certain period of time unless you change frequency. When you change frequency, it's going to recognize you as a new station. And that's important if you're doing A/B antenna comparisons, because you want to do them sequentially. You don't want to wait 20 minutes or an hour. Conditions might change. So if you can compare antennas, for example, you're going to want to switch and do it immediately. So you switch frequency to avoid that problem. And it sees you as a new station. I think some of the examples may help understand. Let's see what I do here. That's right. Okay. So how do you get spotted? Well, you send out a call, and that first 91 megahertz, it's in your TTY, PSK, or most commonly CW. If you're sending CW, you want to send it at constant speed and proper spacing. So that can be an issue. If your spacing is screwed up, your speed's screwed up, it may not be interpreted by the SDR receiver, by the computer. It may not be able to read your code. It's not a human that's reading it, so it's got to be readable by a computer. So what you can do is you can send from a memory keyer. A lot of radios have a memory keyer, an external memory keyer, or you can use a paddle with a keyer, something along those lines. Or you could send out, if you just like comparing antennas, you could send out a PSK or an RTTY signal, which would be easily read. It would be the potential for poor spacing and consistent speed. So what these are programmed to do, the computer's programmed to see CQ, and then the call repeated. It doesn't want to trust just one call, just one call. It wants to see that call repeated. It's kind of a built-in check system. It's a check. So you're going to send CQ, or I don't like to send CQ. Somebody might come back and answer me. Yes. So I send test. So it's going to look for CQ or test, and you call twice. And then you can repeat the CQ or test at the end of that to try to be sure you're heard. So you send, so the examples, like you can say test, this is N5KIP, N5KIP. Or you can have a DE in there. You can say CQ, this is N5KIP, N5KIP1 twice. Or you can send it at the end. You can say test N5KIP, N5KIP test. This is what has worked best for me. Again, I don't have a world of experience, but that seems to work good. You're getting your call in twice, you're getting it tested in twice. The software radios seem to recognize that. So that's what you want to do, is get that call in there. For some reason, I seem to be going backwards. Apologies. I'm not sure what to do to get around there either.
There you go.
Okay.
You got it.
So now, if we're going to test our antenna, for example, I'm going to want to see how my two antennas compare. So I'm going to change the frequency slightly. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to see the same type of thing. But if I change that frequency, it's going to recognize that as a new station. So stations that just copied me on my first antenna, say for example my vertical antenna, now they're going to copy me on my all-center-fed dipole. They're going to see that as two separate stations. Just a few kilohertz. Doesn't have to be very far. So and I try to stay not too far away because the
Antenna will work different.
yeah, it's going to work differently and conditions or something. You don't know exactly. So there may be more noise at one end of the band, whatever. So you call with your first antenna, you change the frequency, you call with your second. So in my example here, I use 10 watts. I probably should use more just to get more samples, but just 10 watts, and I transmitted on 47.047 with my all-center dipole, my vertical. This is another 0.032. And lo and behold, I got picked up with the vertical here, and all these stations picked me up. But only one station picked me up on the off-center fed dipole, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was about the same station, so that's not too unexpected. If you heard you one, you'd expect them to hear the other. So this WFZ7I, he picked me up on both. But notice that the signal-to-noise ratio is 3 dB better here, so it's worth it. The verticals that basically give me a doubling of my, the N here is 1, so, but it's virtually equivalent to doubling the power. The antenna was working better. And you can see when it's reported, you can see it gives you the station that's reporting. These are the skimmer stations. You can look on up, see where they're located if you want to. It's telling you the station that it's reporting. It's not called. It tells you the frequency, which was helpful here because you're using 2 different antennas. If you're looking for them by KIP, if this is a rare DX you're looking for, you know where to go look for them, right? Because you can see the frequency. It tells you what the signal-to-noise ratio is. So if a skimmer, I don't see one here, it's a 5 skimmer, but if here's a 4 skimmer that maybe somewhere close to us, if he sees the station in Africa and he's got a good signal-to-noise ratio, you get more encouragement that you might be able to work. But if he's reporting a very poor signal-to-noise ratio, you may be, a little bit less enthusiastic to be successful. And it's giving you code speed, gives you the time and the date. And right now, at the time I did this with 107 skimmers, and it gives you the list of skimmers, you can see that a lot of these are foreign skimmers, but as you get down lower in that list, which I can't do in this present PowerPoint, we can do it live in a second. You'd see a lot more skimmers.
Dick, a question for you. When I have clicked on the spotting the skimmer station, it doesn't really tell you where they're located.
No, it doesn't. But you can look them up on QRZ, for example.
You can't, right.
And here it tells me in the last 15 minutes, here's N5 KIP was fired on that frequency, 10 spots, and on this other frequency with a OCF Dipole on 1 spot. So it gives you some-
Actually, on some of the programs, if you click on the call sign, it will automatically tell you where they are.
Some of the retail,
Or it will go to QRZ.
some of the retail,
Yeah.
some of the spotting sites, that I'm going to call retail sites, they're using this data, but they're their own site. They're taking this data and they're making it available to you. The one that comes to mind is I don't have a mental block. But there are several of them, and they're using this data.
DX Summit.
DX Summit's one, but they use this data, and you can go in there, and those are great because they do so many filters and things.
Yep.
Things like you're saying.
Oh, I use it. It's on my phone and on my tablet.
That's kind of another subject. It's related to this. I was just going to try to show you this is kind of the wholesale part of it, but those are very useful sites. But they're using the same kind of data. They're just giving you more options. So I took that data and I just copied it and pasted it into an Excel program just for the fun of it. And so you can play with that data because it's easily copied. You get it in Excel and you can see here that these are the ones that might be on the vertical. Here's the dipole. There's a little chart. It's just things to play with. It's not telling me anything that the previous slide didn't show. But you can play with that data, which is kind of fun. You're increasing your signal-to-noise ratio by 3 dB. Essentially, it's as though you doubled your power.
If, ma'am, make a comment.
Yeah.
You have 2 reports from one station and they differ by 2 dB, so I'm not sure I would,
Right here, Tom?
yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to be.
So
Yeah, I agree.
I wouldn't worry about 1 dB changes and things. I might worry about 10 dB
Yeah,
changes.
yeah. I agree with you. I mean, I think you're good. I'm just trying to make the point that you'll get some.
Probably is the propagation shift sometimes a little at the time. It might be sliding.
So let's see, what was this? Oh, this was just the other day. I did it again. I only got that one report from the wire, so I repeated it. So this is what I got the other day, and the vertical versus the wire. And there's a number here where I didn't get any report at all on the wire. But when I did get a report, invariably the vertical was better, and it was anywhere from 3 to 6 to 7 dB greater better. So, but I understand what you're saying. It's not. I wouldn't claim that these are terrifically accurate, but the trend is clearly there. And it's, so this was done, this was a couple of days ago. It's the same experiment I just went through using more recent data. And now I thought this was kind of fun. I just did this for the fun of it. I don't know if this has practical implication. But I went at 5 watts, I quadrupled my power to 20 watts, and I quadrupled it again. So what would you expect? What should we expect to see the signal-to-noise ratio on the average? What would it increase as I increased my power 4-fold? So it went from 5 watts to 20 watts. It's 6 dB, right?
One SU.
Yeah, the issue is 6 dB, and if I fourfold increase it again, you'd expect it to go up another, right? So, you can see how many I got here, but the average here was 5.62, which I thought was remarkably close to what I expected. This is not too far off, we would expect this to be 9, but it's kind of fun. But it gives you some idea of the flavor of what we're doing there with those reports of signal to noise ratio. So I think Dana's point's well taken, but the trend, and there are cases here where when I went up from 5 to 20, it actually went down one here. Same thing up here. So it's not, it's not going to be just, it's going to be like any experiment. There's going to be variation, and the larger the numbers, the more randomness will limit.
Nick, when you look at the S meter, it usually bounces around.
Oh, yeah. And, exactly. And conditions are constantly changing. But again, the trend is there, and the trend is exactly what we'd expect. And the actual quantity is not too, I don't think that's bad at all for, I was surprised, yeah. I was surprised it was as good as that. And then I plotted it out. Again, this doesn't mean anything. I just plotted it out, and you can see that the 80 watt signal's stronger than the 5-watt signal, pretty consistent. Kind of what you'd expect. But you can play with that. You can go back in archives now. K4 VAI is John. He's in the Atlanta area, I think. I just went back there and put his call in, and I got some data from when he was on the air, who was picking them up. So you can go back and you can look at different calls, and you get historical data back several months at least, maybe longer. Here's here's some skimmers. This particular data is 112 skimmers. K4 VAI wasn't on for that last 15 minutes. These were all historical data. So this was data back on the 10th of July. So you get historical data. You can do a spot analysis of up to 10 stations. So you can put in a date. You can select reverse beacons in North America or other continents. You can add it to the call signs to compare. You can look at plot frequency, or I'm going to plot signal to noise ratio. So I chose the club station. Well, here's the North American. I chose North American skimmers. So here's the North American skimmers that are available. Kind of ran out of room here. But how many spots they have? Some have very few spots, 46 spots. He might just be on a single band. Maybe it's 10 meters. Some of them have huge numbers of spots. In the tens of thousands. Here's one 117,000 spots. So he may be operating software to find radios on multiple bands. Maybe a observable location. They have great antennas. So I thought I would look. I couldn't find another station here in town. So this is this is field day. This is Saturday, and this is the W5GIX. The W5GAD is in New Orleans, and so in this particular case, the average signal to noise ratio from GAD was better than GIX. Now, this doesn't mean a whole lot because he's in New Orleans, but had he been in Baton Rouge, it would give us some idea that maybe we needed to look at our antennas on 20 meters, maybe, find out why we're doing, seemingly have a poorer signal than he does on 20. I don't put any stock in this. You can't compare New Orleans station. It's too far, I think. If we had another Baton Rouge station, it might mean something, but just give you an idea of how it would work. Here we are showing up on 40 meters. So this was Saturday, and I did another one on, this is 10 meters on Saturday. Now here, to me, it looks like maybe we're doing just a little bit better, maybe possibly with 35GAD. But just how you can compare different stations. You can compare up to 10 stations. So like during field day, if you stations all over the place, you can get some comparisons. But it gives you an idea, if you're in a contest, your competitors, how they're doing against your station. Get some comparison of how your signal sounds to these skimmers. Somebody actually published a scientific article. It was in the Space Weather, Journal of Space Weather. And that's fixed soundage using real-time amateur radio reporting networks. So they actually use the reverse beacon to do some sounding. So I mean, there's things, and I'm not going to read this abstract, but you know, they basically used the reverse peaking network. We looked at the impact of the solar flare. It was an X-class flare on a certain date, detected by a GEOS 15 satellite, and they looked to see what the effect was on the number of stations that were being picked up by the skimmers, which was the traffic pattern was. Not surprisingly, there was less traffic during the solar flare than otherwise. But so, you know, all kinds of things have been done. The website is reversebeacon.net, reversebeacon.net, and it's the Reverse Beacon Network if you want to use a search term. Now I'm going to try to do a little demonstration. Are we doing okay with time? Yes, sir.
It's 1928.
I've got this thing hooked up to my phone, and I'm hoping I can just sort of show you. So here's the main page, and you know, there's a welcome page, which is this one. It's got a little bit of information, tell you a little bit what to do. The main DX spots, the various skimmers or nodes, and so forth. Right now, there's 106 skimmers online. There's a whole list, and you can go down this list. You're going to see that they're all over the world. But you know, naturally, there's going to be a lot of W's and K's and N's in there. A lot of U.S. skimmers, a lot of European. But they're represented. You know, it's a pretty good representation of skimmers all over the world. So this is real time. Let's see if we get back up here. So I'm going to go to the, I'll show you the main page just to show it. Oops. No, I didn't. What do I have to do here? I'm using this telephone as a Wi-Fi, so it may.
You don't have an internet connection there, Dick. I can see it on the bottom. It's grayed out.
Well, what do I do about that time?
We tried earlier. They're all.
You see my phone on there? I don't see the phone on there.
Oh, your phone's gone.
Where's the phone somehow? Possibly.
Reach your plan limit.
I may have used up my.
Yeah, he just got throttle.
The end of the month, you're probably.
Throttle.
Must be on AT&T.
Yeah, we're not gonna worry about it if we don't get right up on there. That's not what I want, is it? Can somebody help me out as to what I'm looking for here? Oh, okay. Why am I not seeing that on the list?
There you go.
You see that?
It's connected to some Wi-Fi. It just turned white.
Yeah, okay, try it again.
Wi-Fi network now.
Okay. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on this. I'm just gonna try to show you what the real time, you can see the map. So you're gonna put reverse.
There it is.
And I guess we'll go to the main page. Thank you. So you're seeing a map, this one's showing a gray line. Not seeing too much on there at the moment. Hardly anything in North America. Well, it may take a few minutes to catch up. This is giving you some idea of what's open, so you get some idea of propagation. This is the gray line, so it's just about to get dark here. You know, it's beginning to pick up a few now.
What is that representing, Dick?
It's representing point to point. Now, one of these, the red, I've forgotten now. One of these is the DX station, and one is the DE station. The DE is the skimmer station.
Okay.
It's the station that's picking up the signal. The DX is not necessarily DX to us. It simply means that it's the other station. It's the station which the skimmer is picking up.
So where does it get the other station's location from? The DX station? Just from the call?
As far as I know. As far as I know, it's just the call. But now here you can see that this A4VV is reporting 9H1TT. Now if I put, it's got a flag there. You don't have to show the flags, but they do show you different countries. That's Malta. It tells me what the IUT zone it's in, it tells me the CQ zone. He's hearing at 13 dB above the noise, so that's not too bad.
So Dick, that's showing basically that the skimmer is picking up a station in Malta.
Correct.
And it's signaling everything.
He's telling us that Malta station, so, whoops, what happened?
Put it back up.
I guess I didn't look at something.
Went off screen.
Okay. Yeah, it's telling us that, here's a US station we picked up. So here's a Japanese station picking up another Japanese station, so forth. So these are the skimmer stations. These are the stations they're picking up. You can take these flags out of there if you don't want them. You don't have to show the map. Either the red or the green. One is DX and one is the DB. I can't remember which is which one. If you put your arrow on it, it'll tell you what it is. It'll tell you the station. So that station right there, if I can get that on there.
Click.
Well, I may not do it through this connection, but at home, with a regular network connection, it'll tell me what the station is. Did it go? Well, you went away. But, so you can see right now we're picking up a number of stations. Now I could go in here and I can search by a particular call sign. I meant to get on this afternoon so my call sign will show up and go. Let's see. So let's see.
Why don't you use November 7th, Quebec Tango, because you worked in it, so did I, but he does a lot of, he's going to Echo 51, the Cook Islands in September.
Okay, well, let me just try this one on here. I'm going to look for stations that are,
I think you worked.
let's look for stations that are in the central zone. They're in zone 4, they're in CQ zone 4. And I'm going to look for any DX station. But I'm going to look for, I want the DE station, the skimmer, I want to be in zone 4, so that it'll be approximating my position, right? So if it's showing up, you might have a chance to work with it. So we're just going to do that. You see, I could have selected, they're ready-made filters, I could have selected the CW, whatever. Right, so these are stations. Interestingly, I'm not seeing any foreign stations. They're all U.S. stations, which I know by the U.S. flag showing up there as well, where you can look at the calls.
I think the DX Watch has a lot better filtering than some of the others.
The DX Watch and the others have a better filter. And that's the advantage of
You
using.
can narrow it down,
You can narrow it down more. You can actually narrow it down, I think, the state.
Yeah.
But again, that's the retail end. We're at the wholesale. But you can still do a lot with this. That's kind of fun. Yeah, we can search now. Let's see what the one. So we get some idea of who's on the air right now, but we're not hearing much foreign activity right now, which is kind of interesting. So what was the call sign again, Don? Don, what was that call sign?
November 7th, Quebec Tango, but he was also Tango X-Ray 5 Delta on the Astro, but he's headed to the Cook Islands
Well, we'll
in
just try.
September.
All right, we're just going to try him. There was a Cook Island station on just recently, it's the same one. Okay, so he hasn't
He
been on.
lives in Washington.
But he hasn't been on recently. So I don't think we need to spend a whole lot more time with this. He's not on at the moment. But there's a little bit of instruction there. This is a list of the skimmers currently available. And this will tell you when you first seen when the last was there. Now this gives us location by grid square. So there is a provision here to get the grid square location.
So that would show us, like any of us, like me on 80 meters this week, it would show my call sign and signal to noise, or how would that?
CW or PSK or RTTY.
Okay, only, yeah.
Yeah, not phone. It hasn't figured out yet how to.
But the NSA has.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe
On DX Watch, you can narrow it down to sideband CW PSK 31, digital mode. It will help you
But you see,
filter.
those retail servers like DS Watch, they're
Yeah.
getting data not only from the reverse beacon network, but they're also getting data from individuals reporting. I think I pretty much exhausted my time. We went over most of the features. There's a few other neat things in there. There's that comparison where you can compare different stations is in there. But you just get on and play with it, send out some signals. I think it's fun and educational, and it's actually quite useful in some circumstances. Well, let's see what
Some
you
of the
see.
low power guys have fun by you know, sending the beacon out at 100 milliwatts, 50 milliwatts, 5 milliwatts, and seeing if they get picked up on reverse beacon.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many times, you know, a couple of milliwatts and they get spotted.
You know, there's a blog spot that you can get to here from the main page. Oh, this is the spots analysis. And this is what I was showing you when I was comparing GIX to the GAV in New Orleans. So you go in there, you select a date. I selected a Saturday for field day because I figured there'd be most activity that day. You select what reverse beacon, and you enter your call signs. You can enter up to 10 call signs, and then you can compare them. So if you want to know if you're getting out, that's what you can find out if you're getting out. If you want to know who's on the air, where they are with frequencies, where they're being heard, you can do all that through the reverse beacon. I think it's a nice service. And I'm going to bring up Brooks. And thanks for the internet connection.
All right.
It's far better than my phone.
Thanks, Dick, that was very interesting. I've never worked that before. Right. All right, reverse repeater operation is what we're going to talk about tonight. What is reverse repeater operation? Everybody's heard of it, right? And it really doesn't have anything to do with the repeater. Except it uses the repeater input and output frequencies, the ones you normally be talking on through the repeater, but just in reverse. And what in the world is that good for? So for example, all the examples through this presentation are based on the 1979 repeater. So normally, to work the repeater, you'd be transmitting on 146.19 and listening on 146.79. But in the reverse mode, we're going to swap that. So we're listening on the repeater input and transmitting on the repeater output. Most transceivers have a reverse function. Okay? So the next question is, so what's that? What's that? Right. What is it good for? On reverse operation on the repeater, when you're listening to the repeater input, when the other station transmits and you're close enough, you'll hear him directly on your radio, as though you were talking simplex to each other. You're going to hear him directly, not through the repeater. You're not listening to the repeater output because you're listening on the repeater input frequency. Just a little bit of background information on the simplex and repeaters and so on. Here we have two stations talking back and forth to each other, 146.52. They both talk, both on the same frequency, listening and transmitting on the same frequency. They talk back and forth to each other. And that's good, until what happens? You get a little too far apart and you can't hear the other station, right? So what do we do in that case? In that event, you go to a repeater, right? Now, the station on the left is transmitting, right? He's on 146. He's on 146.19. The other guy's listening on 146.79. Normal operation. The repeater up there is listening on .19, transmitting on .79, and these two guys are talking back and forth. Normal repeater operation. Now, in reverse repeater operation, remember we're trying to see if we can carry on that repeater QSO on direct. That is, can we move to a simplex frequency? Well, why don't you just call the guy? Well, the problem is I need to determine if I can hear him first directly. So what we're going to do is we switch to reverse mode, all right? Nobody's talking yet, but the guy over here is on the 146.19. That's the repeater input, listening. See, no transmit. And a little R popped up on the display to indicate it was in reverse mode. This guy's over here still listening, right? But he's listening on the normal repeater output, the .79. Nobody's talking. The next thing that happens, step 2, you listen for the other operator, listen for the other station. He's talking now through the repeater, 146.19, the repeater hears him. But look over here, this station is listening on 146.19. If they're close enough, the station over here can now hear this guy, but not through the repeater, right? That's a direct signal between the two. Almost simplex. If you hear the other station, now this guy's transmitting, okay? But look what freaking, he's on 146.79. In other words, his radio, his transceiver is now operating reverse from normal repeater operation. He's listening on the repeater input frequency, transmitting on the repeater output frequency. This guy over here is listening. He's in normal operation. But when you key up on 146.79, he hears you. Look, doesn't go through the repeater. He's direct right there. So contact the other operator. Hey, Charlie, let's go to a simplex frequency and quit tying up the repeater. He unkeys over here. It goes back to 146.19. We're not going through the repeater. He's transmitting as though he's talking to the repeater. The station over here didn't do anything different. He's still on the normal repeater input and output frequencies. But now he answers. Next step, talk back and forth. Now, you don't want to do this for too long, right? Because you might be interfering with somebody that's listening on the repeater. Remember, anybody that's transmitting on the 146.79 and the guy on the 146.19, he's still bringing up the repeater, right? Transmitting here. The 146.79 that you're transmitting on, anybody close enough to you will hear you as well. But all we're doing here is talking back and forth and saying, let's go to 146.52 or probably 0.55 or something would be better, since 5.2 is a calling frequency. And now we switch back over to our normal simplex operation. We're carrying on our QSO without tying up the repeater. Okay? It may have been kind of fast, but you understand the part about the reverse repeater operation. The repeater operates on 2 frequencies. When you key your radio, transmits on one frequency. When you unkey, it listens on another. It listens on the frequency you were originally on. Normally the repeater output. Yes, sir.
The good thing is, on simplex, you can't time out the repeater if you want.
Can't time out the repeater. Now, nobody does that. You need to wait for that little beep. And there's no beep on simplex. So, I may have gone through that kind of fast. Is there anybody ever done it yet?
Yeah, I find it very useful. I can remember several events downtown where there was a control station with a pretty good antenna and transceiver using the repeater. And you could hear him, but you couldn't hit the repeater. But you're downtown close to him, and with a handy talk. But you could assist in the operations. These were parades or whatever, with reverse operation. And you never did go to the simplex because he was still operating. He was control station.
Right, but you would just talk to him on the repeater output frequency.
Exactly, it was very helpful. And occasionally, if I'm heading out to Denham, I start running out of range in Denham Springs. I'm working at Denham Springs Station. I do exactly that.
That's right. Go to reverse and contact them directly, and then you move to it directly. John and I did that on the way up to Clinton for the merit badge class. We were both well north of Zachary, and we just couldn't, either one of us could make the 7-9 repeater anymore. So I flipped the radio on direct. We were only a couple of miles apart, and called him on 146.79. As far as he was concerned, I was coming over the repeater because that's the frequency he was listening on. I said, I'm on reverse, let's go to simplex. And when he replied, I'd unkeyed, I was back on 146.19 listening.
One way you can tell that you won't hear the courtesy tone.
That's right.
So when John heard you on the repeater output frequency, unlike
But right, when you're unkeyed, there would maybe a little static burst, but no courtesy tone.
Another case that it can be useful is when you're working through the repeater, but you're actually too close to the other guy.
You can be too close.
Desensing.
That's right. You're very close, but you have trouble copying because your repeater is being desensitized, desensed because of the close proximity of another strong signal that's not very far away in frequency. And you can go to reverse, and all that goes away. So, any questions on that? Has anybody ever used that? I know a couple of you guys have. It's not really it may be something you never think about that your radio's capable of doing.
Dig out the manual and find which button it is.
You just have to find where the R button is.
Probably
The R
is
button.
not labeled REV.
It's really good in emergency communication and using a repeater for general health and welfare. And you may be on a tactical mission or assignment. It's good to go to reverse to find out if you can talk direct.
That's right. And that's the main purpose of it, is to decide, are we close enough to carry on a conversation without going through the repeater, without tying up the repeater. Another instance I've used it is sometimes if the repeater just drops off. Well, now, when you key your mic, there's no repeater to repeat your signal. The other station can't hear you. You go to reverse and say something happened to the repeater.
Or there's 3 stations. A's talking to B, and C's in there, and A times it out, and he's still talking B and C.
Either way, the repeater dropped out. It may not have been unexpectedly, but the repeater dropped out. That's exactly right. A and C can continue talking, and that's another.
And they can
point.
laugh at B. You know.
Because he can't hear. He's still got the mic in.
Jim, I never admit to that if I were you.
Well, there was the time that the grocery sack, slid across the seat and keyed the mic and then fell on the floor, and there were some colorful metaphors that were.
Was that you? All right. Well, thank you all very much.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Agents that they drop behind the lines in Europe and in Asia some of them.
Jim, I missed that. What is it, a paraset?
Paraset.
So that's a kit for a
Well,
paraset?
no, this is background. So the Paraset was a radio that the British made. There's a bunch of guys around the world who've been building replicas of them. It's a 2-tube regenerative receiver and then a 1-tube crystal control transmitter. Transmitter ran about anywhere from 5 to 8 watts or so, tuned from 4 megahertz to around 9 or so, and is basically for the agent behind the lines to be able to communicate with the handler in England. Well, I've been collecting parts for years, and I pretty much have all the parts to build one, but it's kind of a fear of flying or failure to launch. I'm just sort of afraid of building tube gear because I haven't built any in 40 years. So I've created, it's really probably, I'll get drummed out of the Paraset group when they find out I've done it, but I'm building a solid state version of the Paraset. So far,
So
I
you call
have,
that a proof of concept?
yeah, proof of concept, exactly. So far, I have the receiver part. So this is the regenerative receiver. It is a little 3-transistor regenerative receiver, and it's a little circuit board done, everything else. There's a Morse key that's built in because a transmitter is coming. So there will be receiver, transmitter in the box, about 4 or 5 watts, thereabouts the whole bit. Built into a little suitcase, because you used to call these suitcase radios. The spy would run around Europe with his little suitcase. This one looks like a little girly purse, but a lunchbox, right? It's decorated with those travel stickers. You used to get the stickers you put on suitcases. And these are from places that during the 40s and 30s were nests of spies. Casablanca, Paris, let's see, Havana, what's the other one on here? Messina, Vichy, Port Said, Stockholm. So all sorts of these places. Well, I finished the receiver about a month ago, getting the receiver in the box and everything, and decided to start working on the transmitter. How many of you have heard of the Tuna Tin 2? Back in 1976, Doug DeMaw wrote an article for QST, and he described a little 2-transistor, hence the tube, transmitter, ran about 300 milliwatts or so output, that you used a tuna fish can as the chassis. It's a little round circuit board, and you built it into the tuna fish can. It was called the Tuna Tin 2. He later on followed that up with a companion receiver called the Herring aid.
Hearing aid. Oh
A
my
few years
God.
ago, we actually built some of those as a club project, back when Tom Waits? Yeah, Tom Waits was here, and he led that project. Of course, you now had a transmitter, the Tuna 10-2, you had a receiver, the hearing aid, so you needed a VFO for it. So they had something called the CB slider. It wasn't CB like you think, it was CB for chopped beef. It was put in a Spam can. And it was had a slide pot for a VFO. And then you needed a keyer. So they had the sardine sender. And finally, 300 milliwatts is insufficient amount of power. You need a linear. So they made the Codzilla amplifier. Okay, well, that's the background. So what I decided to do was to take the basic circuit from the Tuna 10-2 and marry it with a little amplifier made out of a MOSFET power amp device, and try to get a little transmitter that would do about anywhere from 3 to 5 watts or so. So Tuna 10 circuit, you know, amplifier circuit. I've actually got some of this on a web page written up a bit. Anybody wants to look for it, you can look up my web page. But I wanted to show you the sort of progress. Took the circuit and built a mock-up, a breadboard. This is called Manhattan-style construction. Pass that around to folks. You glue little islands of PC board material down and use that as tie points to connect the circuit. It's easy to build up a quick one-off, see if it's going to work, tweak it around, see what you need to do to make the thing function. So I built that up over this past weekend. By Sunday afternoon, I'd verified that it worked. Darn thing actually would give me about 10 watts if I drove it hard. Sucked about 2 amps from the battery, and you could, read by the light of the heatsink because it started to glow red. So I throttled it back to about 3-4 watts, and it worked fine. So after that thing got to working well, then I just laid out a circuit board and made the circuit board version of the same thing. And I went from that to this in the space of yesterday, between morning and so it doesn't take long to do this, to get through the whole thing. It's a little single-sided home-etched circuit board using the same method that Buddy showed us some time ago about how to make circuit boards. So pass this one around as well. It has a funny-looking shape because Penny is a heat sink, I guess, because it has to fit in there like this. So that's why there's an odd shape to the thing. So this will go in the box. Morse key is there. I have to add a switch to the front to switch from transmit to receive, and then a crystal socket, because it is, after all, crystal controlled. Any of you recognize these crystals? Oh, yeah. So, but this is not actually a real FT243. What it is hollowed out, and there's a little mini HC49 crystal stuck in there. Now, it's tough to find crystal sockets for these things these days, so I'm working on a homebrew crystal socket. So we're doing that as well. So pass that around. I'll take a look at that as well. So it's actually fairly easy to take a project from a circuit diagram to a Manhattan breadboard to check it out to see if it's going to work. And if it does, then spend a little time laying the circuit board out and make one. And in a couple of days' time, you can go from an inception to actually a working project. And so I'll put those two together, and then I'll go find a place to act like a spy. So if I get exchanged in the middle of the bridge between here and Fort Allen, you'll know for sure. Anyway, come see. If you want to look up the info, my webpage is n5ib.net. And then somehow I'm very bad at HTML, and my homepage is index.xht, X-ray Hotel Tango, not HTML. I don't know how I managed to do this, but you end up having to do it. So n5ib.net/index.xht, and you'll get there, and there's links to this stuff.
Is that linked to your QRZ page?
I don't know. You can't put links anymore in your bio.
Really?
I don't.
I thought you could.
You can put the page, but it's not a link. They won't let you do it as a link. But I haven't gone and updated my bio to put that there. So if you search for it, you might find it. There's actually a Yahoo group for the receiver, and some of that is posted on there too. So we'll see. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. Anything else?
All right, thank everybody. That concludes our program for this evening. Thank y'all for showing up. Congratulations to all our new techs and upgrades. We will meet next month at the Red Cross. Yes, Red Cross building on Sherwood Common. Is that the address? And we'll have a presentation there by Steve Irving on D-Star Radio. So thank y'all very much. Have a good evening.
Red Cross Street, where is that?
Sherwood Common. I think the name of the street is Sherwood Common. It's over between Sherwood Common. It's a Red Cross.
It's off Airlines.
Yeah.
You still haven't gotten registered?